How do I build a watch list pre-market using my Squeeze Pro scanner? Hello and welcome back. Dr.B here with Ready, Set, Grow. And on this channel, my goal is to share tips to help you on your financial and trading journey. If you're new here, make sure you like and subscribe and check the description for some valuable resources. Right now, I'm going to go through my favorite scans to help me find tickers pre-market for my watch list. The first thing I like to do when scanning for possible setups pre-market is look for tickers that have at least a 5-dot squeeze. I'm running a 5-dot squeeze pro scan to find those. I ran it on the daily time frame, and here's some of the results that I could further analyze. Okay, as you've seen in my previous videos, I keep the squeeze watch list columns right beneath my scans, along with the histogram colors and the EMA columns. And I put those right beneath my scans so that I can easily analyze the information without having to switch to the chart. The reason that I'm looking for tickers that have at least a 5-dot squeeze is because I first want to know that the ticker has been in consolidation for a period of time, and this gives us an idea of what tickers have built up energy that is possibly going to be releasing. So my scan results show a number of tickers that have at least a 5-dot squeeze. But as you know, I like to trade tickers that have confluence across the time frames. So not only am I looking for it to have at least a 5-dot squeeze, but I'm also looking to see that the histograms are aligned, that the EMAs are stacked across all the time frames that I trade. So the time frames I trade are the weekly, daily, 4-hour, 2-hour, and 1 hour. I rarely look at anything under the 1 hour. Now, if I were going to pick tickers to add to my watch list, what tickers do you think have the most confluence? Take a look. If you said Humana, H-U-M, you are correct. I like H-U-M because it has a 28-dot squeeze on the daily. The histograms are all cyan, that's a bullish indication, and the EMAs are all green, so they are all stacked positive across the time frames in which I trade. Another thing that I like is that it already fired long on the weekly. It has fired long on the 4-hour. It fired long on the 2-hour. So which direction do you think it will fire on the daily? It is likely to fire long as well. And if the spreads are decent, I'm likely to take a long position in HUM when the market opens. You can start building a position while it's in a squeeze, or you can wait till it fires. Another ticker that has confluence across all the time frames is KR. I'm actually already in this trade. I called it yesterday. KR has an 8-dot squeeze on the daily. It has already fired long on the monthly, the weekly, the 4-hour, the 2-hour, and the 1-hour, so it is likely to fire long on the daily as well. I already started building a position in this because I believe it will fire long on the daily, and all this information confirms it. We have bullish histograms on all the time frames, and all the EMAs are stacked positive. When trading the TTM squeeze, you are looking for tickers that have the highest probability of firing in a specific direction. The more confluence you have, the higher that probability is. Like I went over for HUM and KR, these have already fired long on multiple time frames. So what are the odds that it will fire long on the time frames that they are squeezing on? While it is not a guarantee that it's going to fire long, it has a very high probability of firing long. Do you see any other tickers that have confluence across all the time frames? Let's go through them. We have VXX. It has multiple squeezes. The histograms are all aligned, but are the EMAs stacked across all time frames? No, they are not. The EMAs are not stacked on the weekly or on the daily, so this is not a trade that I would consider. Let's look at Lyft. Lyft has multiple squeezes, has also fired short on the 2-hour. Are the histograms all bearish? No, they are not. For me to be short this ticker, it would need to be all red or all red and blue. That would be a bearish indication to me. The EMAs, however, are stacked negative on all the time frames, so you could wait for these histograms to follow suit and then consider a position. Having it set up where I can just look at the colors really quickly, I could tell that there's nothing else I'm interested on this time frame. Looking at the rest of the tickers, I see colors all over the place, EMAs not stacked everywhere, so I know that there's nothing else for me to consider on this time frame. Now I'm going to run the scan again on the 4-hour time frame. What ticker do you see has confluence across all time frames? If you said CCJ, you are correct. Looking at CCJ, it has multiple squeezes. There's a 6-dot squeeze on the daily and a 13-dot squeeze on the 4-hour. It has already fired long on the weekly and on the 2-hour. The histograms are bullish, as they are all cyan, and the EMAs are stacked positive, indicated by these green S's. So very quickly, I'm able to identify CCJ as a possible trade. Now let's take a look at the 2-hour time frame. Again, we're looking for tickers that have at least a 5-dot squeeze and confluence across the time frames. Do you see a ticker that has confluence across all the time frames? My attention goes directly to SYY. It has multiple squeezes on all the time frames. The histograms are all cyan and the EMAs are all stacked positive. Take a look at CVX. CVX has multiple squeezes across the time frames. It has already fired long on the monthly time frame. The histograms are all cyan and the EMAs are stacked positive. What about RTX? Does this ticker have confluence across all the time frames? RTX has multiple squeezes. The histograms are all bullish. However, the EMAs are not stacked on the 2-hour and the 1-hour. So this is something I would consider once the EMAs become stacked. You could keep it on your watch list. Another thing that is concerning to me about RTX is that it has fired short on the monthly time frame. So if the larger time frame is telling me that this ticker has bearish momentum, then I would ignore whatever's happening on the smaller time frames, because the larger time frame trumps the smaller time frames. The bigger picture for this ticker is that it fired short on the monthly, which means there's 6 to 8 months of bearish momentum. However, you can scalp the pops that you are likely to see. Now what? Once I have gathered a list of tickers that I can possibly trade, I see what happens when the market opens. These conditions need to stay the same when the market opens. Since this is pre-market data, there is no guarantee that these conditions are going to stay the same. For example, maybe when the market opens, SYY all of a sudden doesn't have stacked EMAs across all the time frames. Maybe the histograms now turn bearish. Then I would no longer consider it a trade. I will only trade the tickers on my watch list if the conditions hold once the market opens. Once the market opens, I take other things into consideration, such as their spread. Are the spreads decent? Are the spreads $1 wide? If the spread is too wide, then I'm not going to take a trade on it. Is the ticker past its average true range on the daily time frame? If the ticker only moves $1.66 a day and it's already up $2, I'm not going to trade that ticker regardless of what confluence it has. So there are other things to consider as well. I do use a number of scans to help me identify tickers pre-market, but this video was focusing on just the 5-dot squeeze pro scan, where I was scanning for tickers that have at least a 5-dot squeeze, any compression on the squeeze pro. Thank you for watching and see you next time.